I'm Aileen Carroll, sommelier with Lynfred Winery. Today we are featuring these wines in a vertical tasting, meaning we get to compare 3 different vintages. And the interesting thing is going to be that even though we have the same type of grape in all these wines, they're made in slightly different ways, ranging from dry to what we call off-dry. We'll have a chance to get clear on exactly what these terms mean. We'll learn about the winemaking process for achieving different levels of sweetness in wine. I'll have some tips and tricks for how you can expand your skills in tasting wine. And of course, I'll be offering some excellent food and wine pairing suggestions for you. Sound good? Let's get started. All that the term dry means is that a wine doesn't taste sweet. That's it. But the term dry can be a little bit confusing. Specifically, it gets confused with the term tannin, because tannin is that aspect of a wine that makes your mouth feel dry. Now, we actually don't have to worry about understanding tannin today because there's virtually no tannin at all in white wine. Well, how could that be, you ask? Good question. There's a big difference between how white wine and red wine is made, and that's whether or not the skins of the grape are included in the fermentation process, because the skin is where the tannins are. Now, to make a red wine, you take the grapes, squish them with the skins on, and then you ferment that whole thing, the skins and the juice. But with white wine, you press the grapes, get just the juice, and ferment only the juice without the skins and turn that into wine. The interesting and important thing is that the level of sweetness doesn't have anything to do with the grape itself, but from the way in which the wine is made. So I already explained that white wine is made by pressing the juice, leaving the skins behind, adding yeast, and then you ferment that juice into wine because the yeast will eat the sugars and convert those into alcohol. A winemaker can choose to stop that fermentation process before it's fully complete, before the yeast has eaten all the sugar. They do this by chilling the wine to a temperature below which the yeast can't operate, and then they filter the yeast out. So since the yeast hasn't eaten quite all of the sugar yet, there will be some residual sugar remaining in the wine, meaning that the wine will taste a little bit sweeter than if the fermentation process had been allowed to go to completion. Cheers. Dry white wines are so refreshing in the heat of summer. Now, remembering our terms from before, this wine is obviously dry because it doesn't taste sweet, but there's one other technically different aspect of this wine that I'm sure we're also noticing right away, and that's how mouth-watering, tart, and refreshing it is. So I do want to briefly explain that other technical term now that we finally quenched our thirst, and that term is acid, which can sound a little bit scary or unappetizing, but it's an important wine term to get clear on. Acidity is exactly that thirst-quenching, refreshing texture that we were noticing right away in this 2015. It's that textural aspect that makes your mouth water. One tip for you as you expand your smelling and tasting skills besides stopping and smelling the flowers is to not be too hard on yourself or worry that you're going to give the wrong answer when you say what you're tasting or smelling. It's really an art as well as a science, and luckily enough for us, practice makes perfect. All right, so we've been talking a lot about the different levels of sweetness in wine as well as acidity. So I do want to finish by talking about how different levels of sweetness and acidity work when pairing food with wine. Just like we wanted a balance between acidity and sweetness in the wine itself, we'll also want to balance sweet and spicy when it comes to pairing wine with food. Off-dry or sweeter wines like our 2017 are fantastic matches for any kind of spicy cuisine. So think spicy Asian food, Thai food, Korean barbecue. The opposite of how sweet wine balances out spicy food is that a more acidic white wine will actually make spicy food taste spicier. And the cool thing about understanding these different factors, it'll allow you to better hone in on exactly what it is that you like and why you like it. And then when you know that, you can go find other similar wines that will also be delicious for you. Until next time, cheers.